Well, it appears that winter is officially here to stay. After getting 15 inches of very heavy wet snow, we got a few day break. Then we woke up this morning to another 15 inches of fresh snow. It is officially time to get the new skid steer snowblower out and just see how well it can handle this heavy snow.
I got you. Leave it to me. So put your bend it. I am. Bend. No, you're not. They're not bending it.
Bend it before you try to put it on. Bend it in half.
There you go.
It's not working so well.
Push long enough. It's a little crooked.
It's hitting the roof of this.
It's like bent.
Yeah, it kind of is.
They're just gonna burn it. It's like trees.
Thank you to Nuts.com for sponsoring today's video. Nuts.com is your one-stop shop for freshly roasted nuts, dried fruit, sweets, pantry staples, and more.
Since 1929, this has been a family business, and they have always maintained the highest quality when it comes to their products sold. They roast their nuts and pop their corn on the same day that it ships.
So it gets to the customer deliciously fresh as if they bought it from a local shop. Products can be bought a la carte or auto delivery, so your stock never runs out.
That's important. We can't be running out of this stuff.
Can't run out of your mangoes.
Mangoes or something else. There are no fixed plans, so you can buy whenever it works best for you.
And as always, satisfaction guaranteed.
Any of the products found at Nuts.com would be perfect gifts for the holidays, whether it's for coworkers or for teachers or for family or for friends. Any of these products would be perfect.
Nuts.com is offering new customers a free gift with purchase plus free shipping of orders over $29 if you go to nuts.com/redpoppyranch to enjoy the good stuff.
I can do this all day long. All right, dude, I gotta go plow snow. It happens to be warm enough that I have to be careful about picking up rocks with the new snowblower, but so far it's working great. The snow was so heavy and wet that we had a hard time getting the Jeep up the driveway after coming home from church. This time of year, every day can be an adventure, and sometimes it's not the adventure I was planning on, but with the right attitude it can still be an adventure. The new snowblower worked great, but the front door for the skid steer is broken at the moment, and therefore I'm pretty cold. So it's going to be a hot mess around here for the next few days, which means I am going to focus on this old Ford 7.3 IDI and see if I can get it fired up and running and make sure everything's good with it. It supposedly had a fuel issue, but it needs a new starter, so I went ahead and ordered a high torque starter, and it got here fast enough that now I want to get it swapped in and see if it is the starter issue. For the next week or two, it's going to be a bit of a mess out here as I break a couple of trucks down, keep the usable parts, then cut the old parts down to fit in the back of my truck that I can haul down to the scrapyard. Rinse and repeat until I have the parts left that I want to keep. And as I said, in the meantime, it can be a little bit messy around here, especially with the snow. But this is how I avoid using a trailer this time of year. Okay, let me show you where I'm at here. I think I'm ready to crank it over. I've got a 5-gallon can of diesel in the back here with a brand new fuel line ran all the way up to the mechanical pump. I've got 2 new batteries. I've got a new starter installed. One of the first things I'm going to do is replace the cables in the terminals, but I'm not going to worry about that until I can get this thing to crank over. So I should be ready to crank it over. Assuming there's not an issue with the ignition or something like that. So, okay, all right. Let's push it out of the shop. So now I'm beginning to wonder if we had a couple of things going on. There definitely was a starter issue before. That's a cheap AutoZone starter. The new starter, I can tell, has got way more power. 2 brand new batteries, but there's still an ignition issue, but this doesn't matter because I'm not going to use that column. So all that I want to do is see if it'll fire. So I'm going to cross the solenoid and just see what happens. Okay, I unhooked the first stop at the fuel filter. If the mechanical lift pump is working, there should be fuel coming out this side. Woo! Okay, lift pump's working. That's good. I can hear the fuel shutoff solenoid opening, so it should have fuel. Let's crank it again. Okay, so why are we not getting... Okay, got fuel there. Okay.
Here's a lefty.
After sleeping on it and doing a little bit of online research, I came to the conclusion that the metering valve inside the injection pump was probably stuck. But I had the thought, if I could get this metering valve to loosen up, I could probably get this thing running. And then while I'm working on other things, I can have the pump rebuilt and throw a brand new pump in here and maybe even throw some new injectors in here too. But I pulled the top off of the pump and sure enough, the metering valve was stuck. But I pulled the top off the pump and I found that the metering valve, which you can barely see, this thing, I couldn't even move it. It wouldn't even go back and forth. You need to be really careful doing this. You don't want to contaminate that. You also want to make sure you get it installed properly, because that little clip right there, if you don't get that sitting behind that metering lever, you can have a runaway motor, and it happens. I see online on a fairly regular basis. You'll see guys jump on and say they did something wrong and the motors took off. So I do not want that to happen, so I'm gonna do my best to get it installed correctly, and then I think we should be able to get fuel to the injectors now. All right, that's all the way forward, which means that. The truck had been sitting for 4 years and the injection pump needs to be rebuilt, but I couldn't help trying to get it fired one last time. All right, I could chase the injection pump around for a while and waste a lot of time on it. I feel like the motor has good compression. I feel like everything else is okay. So I'm going to pull the pump in the next couple of days and send it to Area Diesel Service and have them go through it like I have in the past. And I'm going to move forward as though the drivetrain's good. There is a rear main seal that needs to be done on the motor. And I may do a clutch if I get in there that far with that ZF5 transmission. I don't know what this truck is going to be used for. It's going to come down to how much I like it, I guess. It could end up being the full-time plow truck as well as a backup wood truck. It just kind of comes down to the end result, but I need to build it to handle the work that I'm going to do around here, no matter what it does. So this thing needs to be able to start on the coldest of mornings, and that's part of the reason I put that close ratio starter on here. I'm going to build some battery cables for it. I'm going to do all the stuff to help it start on those cold mornings, but I also want it to look good. And so I'm going to go ahead and carefully pull the wiring harness out of the cab. I could order a painless wiring kit for that truck and build it to where it has a circuit for the glow plugs and for heater, all that stuff. Or I could try and reuse this harness on this truck, and I'm not sure that I'm gonna do that either, but I don't wanna just start cutting stuff up out of the cab, so I'm gonna try and separate the fuse block. I'm gonna try and keep the brake, the booster, everything here with the truck, and I'm hoping that either by the end of the day or tomorrow morning, I have this cab off the truck, and I've got the 69 moved down here to where I can start pulling that cab and front clip off that truck, so. So again, let me remind you what I'm about to do. I'm going to take this 1990 Ford F250 cab off of the frame and the drivetrain, and then I'm going to swap the 1969 cab, bed, and front clip onto this frame. But I have a feeling it's not going to be quite that easy. Your dad sent this to us?
Yes.
Here on a Tuesday night. Could you imagine if you'd put the entire package in there?
You gotta read the fine print.
Okay, so it's getting close. Okay, I turned the camera off and just kind of went over everything and made sure everything's disconnected that needs to be disconnected. Steering column, brakes, clutch, a little bit of electrical, some vacuum lines. I think all I have left is 4 bolts, and then I can lift the cab straight up and set it off very carefully. And then I'm going to set this frame out of the way, bring the 1969 F250 down here, get the cab and front clip off of it, roll the frame back in here, and then that's when things are going to get fun. It would have been cheaper for me to find a 1969 F250 that was 4-wheel drive and swap a Cummins into it or something like that, as opposed to trying to make that body work on this drivetrain and frame. But I'm a glutton for punishment, and to me this makes sense if I can make it all fit together right. Okay, so here is what I see after looking this thing over for a couple of minutes. I'm going to pull the saddle tank off and the bypass valve off, and I'm going to install a Bronco fuel tank in the rear. I think that rear tank is around a 17-gallon, and the Bronco tank I'm going to put in is a 33-gallon, and that'll be the only tank this truck has. So the bypass valve and this saddle tank will go away, eliminating any more potential for air intrusion. I'm going to pressure wash this off really well today. It's still supposed to be a nice warm day today, and I think this is probably one of the last days I'm going to get that pressure washer out. I can see it needs a rear main seal. I can see it needs valve cover gaskets. I can see the tail shaft on the ZF5 transmission needs a seal. But for where this truck came from, it was an old ranch truck, an old wood truck. All of the rubber bushings on it, even the exhaust bushings, they're not worn out, and that's an indication that it just doesn't have that many miles on it. I can see there's a crack in the Y pipe on the exhaust that I'll have to address at some point. But really the main focus right now is to get everything pressure washed and cleaned off. And then I'm going to roll this thing out of the way and drag the other truck down here and do the opposite of what I just did. When I was a kid, I found more joy in taking things apart than I most certainly did in trying to put them back together. I don't know how many times my dad had to take me down to the Schwinn bicycle shop to get my bike put back together because I couldn't quite figure it out. Somewhere in my early teenage years is when I really got into cars and trucks. But I didn't start playing around with diesels until I was in my late 20s. So now begins the process of what will be taken from the '69 F250 and made to work on the 1990 F250. So over the last 20 years, I have built 3 different square body crew cab short bed Chevys, and 2 of those had a Cummins diesel in it, where one of them had a Cummins diesel and an Eaton Fuller Road Ranger 10-speed transmission behind it as well. And while that truck looked good sitting still, it wasn't fun to drive. And with the amount of effort that I'm about to put into this truck, I need this truck to drive good too, especially if it ends up being a plow truck. This truck has a little bit of rust in the floor pans that I'm going to have to fix at some point. All right, while I have the truck level, I'm gonna mark a few gaps. So once I start placing the new cab and the new bed and the new front clip on the other frame, that I get my centers right and I get my gaps right. The gap between the bed and the cab is a measurement I'm gonna take, but I'm also gonna hang the fenders back up, and I'm gonna hang a plumb bob off of the center line with the axle and mark that on the fender. So I'm gonna mark the center line on this cab, so when I go to put it on that front axle, that my center lines are the same. To me, your gaps and whether or not everything lines up the way that it's supposed to is the first indication on whether or not you know what you're doing. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to add somewhere around 6 inches to the 1990 frame to make this camper special bed work on that frame. But I won't have to bother with that until the cab is in place. But it's also really important that I get the bed sitting on the frame rails and use that as my baseline for the cab. And again, I'm trying to make this look like it was done in a way where you can't tell that I did it. Just for your information, I have been trying to talk myself out of this project all day long, but I'm in too deep to quit now. Part of the resistance I had in originally buying this truck was the little bit of rust I could see in the cab corners and the floor pans. But I've been telling myself for the last couple of months that the rust isn't that bad. Now I get to find out for sure. Okay, I could technically lift the cab off right now and set it away from the frame, get the frame out of here, but I really want to clean this cab up a little bit more before I take it in the shop, and if it's warm enough tomorrow, I'm going to pressure wash the inside of the cab out, and then I can really get a hard look at where the rust repair is going to take place. There's a couple of spots on the floor I'm going to have to fix. There's the corners on both sides of the cab I'm going to have to fix, but all in all, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to have to do the entire floors in it. So first thing in the morning, I'm going to use the skid steer to lift the cab off, and hopefully it's warm enough that I can clean up the inside of the cab. And then I want to get inside the shop where it's warm, and also get the 1990 frame inside the shop where I can start doing some serious figuring on how the cab is going to sit on that frame. The bed is probably going to be the easiest part of the whole equation as far as getting it sitting on that 1990 frame. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to section in probably 6 or 8 inches of frame to get that camper special bed to fit on that frame correctly. But I'm not even worried about that until I get the cab and the front clip squared away. And hopefully by like tomorrow afternoon, I've got a pretty good idea how hard this is going to be. We wanted to say thank you again for taking time to watch this week's video. On next week's video, we'll get back to the old truck, as well as managing the snow, as well as the deer, and I'm sure something else is going to pop up in the middle of all that as well. We will see you soon.